You want to know the hottest commodity in our world today? It's truth. Think about it. We spend billions of dollars every year going to court filing lawsuits. Why? So that the truth about a situation can be made known. We spend hours every day comparing sources from different news media outlets. Why? So that we can learn the truth about what's going on in our country. We visit the doctor so that we can learn the truth about our medical condition. We study math and science in school so that we can learn the truth about the world around us. You see, we are really obsessed with finding truth, which is really ironic because less than half of adult Americans would even admit that there was such a thing as absolute truth. So, either we're really misprioritizing our time, or there's more to this absolute truth thing that meets the eye. Hey everyone, welcome back to Hard Questions with Elena. Today we're going to be discussing the truth about truth. I know this topic is really big and menacing to a lot of people, so we're going to be breaking it down step by step logically so that I don't go insane and you don't get overwhelmed. So, on that note, let's jump into it. I think the best place to start is with a basic definition to get everybody on the same page. What would this absolute truth thing look like if theoretically it existed? We're going to look at 6 characteristics of absolute truth and prove each one of them using something you already know is absolutely true. Let's take a look. Number 1, absolute truth is true even if it is not known. The world was round before people discovered that it was. It's always been round. It's true. Number 2, absolute truth is true for all people. It does not depend on culture or location or era. The world is round for everyone who lives on the world. Makes sense. Number 3, absolute truth is not dependent on belief. There was a time in history when people thought that the world was flat, but it was still round. Yes. Number 4, absolute truth cannot change, even though beliefs change. Eventually, those same people discovered that the world is round. The world had always been round, it hadn't changed, but just people's ideas about it had. Number 5, absolute truths are exclusive, meaning that they exclude their opposite from being true. The world cannot be round and flat. And lastly, all truths are absolute, even if they seem relative. This one is more debatable, and so we're going to look at this one later in the video because it deserves some more time. Now, let's move on to the actual arguments. There are really only 3 directions we could go with this video. Either 1, there is absolute truth, or 2, there's not absolute truth, or 3, none of the above, we will never know. Let's start off with there is no absolute truth. I want to just say this definitively for you out loud. There is no absolute truth. Do you see the problem with the statement I just made? I was just declaring absolutely all the time that there is no absolute truth, but I just made an absolute statement. You see, this thought doesn't hold up because it's circular logic. It contradicts itself because it cannot meet the standards that it sets up. In his book, I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist, Frank Turek writes this.
A self-defeating statement is one that fails to meet its own standards. As we're sure you realize, the caller's statement, "There is no truth," claims to be true and thus defeats itself. It's like saying, "I can't speak a word in English." If someone ever said that to you, you would obviously respond, "Wait a minute, your statement must be false because you just uttered in English."
Now that's on a theoretical basis. Logically, it doesn't make sense. But what about in real life? Well, nobody actually believes this, not even you. You argue with people, right? Why? Because you believe that you are right and they are wrong. I do the same thing. You might be arguing with me right now saying there is no absolute truth. But back to the example that I used at the very beginning, we all live our lives as if they're absolutes. We visit the doctor, we go to court, we read the news. We live in light of the truth even if we're denying its existence. So let's look at our last option. Maybe there is absolute truth, but we'll never know. We'll never be able to discover if we've actually found the truth. I hear this one a lot in academic circles at school and stuff like that. The problem is the same circular reasoning that we just looked at is applied to this statement as well. You see, if I'm declaring that absolute truth is unknowable, or we will never be able to discover absolute truth, I'm making an absolute statement. I'm saying that 100% of the time, absolute truth is not knowable. You see the problem? And what about in real life? You don't believe this one either. You believe that the doctor has found the absolute truth about your condition. That's why you let him cut you open and move things around. Now, I'm not saying the doctor is always right. I'm not saying that they always have found absolute truth, but you believe that they could have. You believe that he could have found the answer. You believe that there is absolute truth to be found. Now we come to the big one, the one that we tabled from earlier. This is one that I hear a lot in today's society. All truth is relative. Evolutionists would teach that we all evolved with our own sense of truth. What is true for you might not be true for me. Maybe you choose to believe that there is no absolute truth, while I choose to believe that there is. The problem is, these two things cannot exist at the same time. They can't both be true. Is the truth that all truth is relative also relative? You see, this is another self-defeating statement because by declaring all truth to be relative, I am making an absolute statement. Even skeptics that say we must be skeptical of everything, do they doubt skepticism? It's just something to think about. So, if there is absolute truth, then where does it come from? I certainly don't make it up. You don't make it up. We can discover it and prove it through science, but science hasn't predetermined it. No, there has to be some standard outside of ourselves and our universe by which we measure truth. The only logical explanation that I can see for this is a supernatural being who has set in place the laws of nature, who has created the standard that we measure our truth by. I just wanted to throw this out there for you guys that I think the existence of absolute truth proves that there has to be a deity. One last thing that I wanted to touch on, because we're on the subject of truth, is the big question of, could all religions be true? This is a big one in today's society. A lot of people believe that all religions are just different means to the same end. Or all religions are true, it's just which one you prefer. Well, I would argue that all religions have some true aspects, some true elements. They cannot all be true, and here's why. The nature of absolute truth means that it negates its opposite. Two things that are in contradiction cannot both be true at the same time. Well, if Christianity is claiming to be the only way to get into heaven, the only truth, and Islam is also claiming the same thing, they cannot both be true. Well, that pretty much wraps it up. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that this video helped you in your search for absolute truth. I'm actually in the process of making a second video on absolute morality. It's pretty much like a second part to this video. I will link it in the description box below. I just didn't want to bore you guys for too long with too lengthy of a video. And please remember that you can write us an email. I say this at the end of every video. The email address is hardquestions.withelaina@gmail.com. Ask us any of your hard questions about life, religion, God, evolution. We'd love to hear from you, and we might feature them in a future video. Also, please like, comment, and subscribe to this video, and be sure to follow me on Instagram. Stay tuned for more. See you guys. Bye.